Hello everyone, Neil Tappin here from Golf Monthly and welcome to Bishopsgate Golf Academy out here in Orlando, Florida, where today I'm going to be showcasing 6 of my favourite driver models of 2019. So I have in front of me the Cobra King F9 Speedback, the Callaway Epic Flash Sub-Zero, I've got the TaylorMade M5, I've got Titleist TS3, Ping's G410 Plus, and finally Mizuno's ST190 driver. And the idea is to put each of these drivers through its paces on a launch monitor and out here on the golf course, and then to break up the results into a series of key categories. So we've got aesthetics, feel, performance and value in order to help you with your own buying decisions. So if you are in the market this year for a new driver, you can go armed with the best knowledge possible. So we're going to take a look at the results, starting with the aesthetics. Okay, so as far as the aesthetics go, I mean, they all look really good. They've got different things going on from the crown view down at address. If you like something sort of busier down behind the ball, something to help you with your alignment, then you might want to go for the Ping G410 Plus or the Cobra King F9 Speedback. The use of the sort of aerodynamic features on that can actually help you with your alignment as well. But for me, I like a fairly sort of clean and simple and yet a little bit modern look down behind the ball with a classic sort of shape. I think that'll become clear when I tell you what my favourites are. So my favourites in this category are the TaylorMade M5, the Callaway Epic Flash Sub-Zero, and the Mizuno ST190 driver. So starting with the TaylorMade, what I love about this is that every year when the M range of woods is matured, they slightly refine the looks, and that's exactly what they've done with the M5. So the silver part on the crown isn't quite as big as it has been in the past, it's still there, and the carbon composite part to the crown has been given a matte black finish, and I think this looks really smart. I think it looks smart down behind the ball, but also in the bag, and the sole view really does catch a really striking look. I think that looks absolutely superb. Then onto the Callaway Epic Sub-Zero. It has that same carbon composite crown it had last year. I loved it last year. It looks great again. I love the sort of profile as well. It's a little bit more compact, I think, to look down on behind the ball, and it's really smart, really classic. Yes, they've given it a bit of a paint job this time with the green and the yellow. I wouldn't say that was 100% to my taste. It doesn't really put me off too much, and I think the Epic Flash is a really good looking driver. And then finally, new to this driver test, new to the Golf Monthly driver test for 2019 is Mizuno and their ST190 drivers. And I was really pleased when Mizuno launched these this year, because now the woods really match up with the irons in terms of the aesthetics. I mean, there's not really much to choose from between Callaway and Mizuno in terms of that carbon composite down behind the ball. This looks really smart, and I also think the shelf appeal view, the sole view, also looks really good as well. So those would be my 3 favourites. If I had to pick the one to go for based on looks, I think it would be the TaylorMade M5. It's an area that TaylorMade just seem to get right year after year. They've subtly improved it in the M5, and I really loved it. Okay, so onto the feel category, and actually I've noticed a bit of a trend in 2019 for drivers to become, it's seemingly across the board, just that little bit more higher pitched through the impact hit. It's certainly noticeable with the Callaway, slightly higher pitch than it had been in previous generations. You will notice a different feel if you test the Epic Flash Sub-Zero up against the previous generation Rogue or the original Epic. You'll notice how much of a higher pitch sound it is. And certainly with the Titleist TS drivers, they were also that little bit higher pitched this time than in the previous generation 917 drivers. And finally, in Mizuno's range, the ST190G was slightly higher pitched than the ST190 version. Feel is one of those things that is ultimately extremely subjective. So what suits my ear might not necessarily suit yours, but I really prefer that sort of slightly more dull, that muted impact sound. For me, I associate that with more power, and that's why my 3 favourites in the feel department would be the Mizuno ST190, the fixed weight version, the Cobra F9 Speedback that I've got in my hands here, and also the TaylorMade M5. And my favourite of the 3 was the TaylorMade M5. To me, this feels really powerful, really solid through the contact. It's definitely probably the most muted, the most of a sort of dull thud through the ball. That might not be to your liking. It certainly wouldn't be to everybody's liking. I know that Some of the people in the Golf Monthly office prefer that higher pitch sound. They associate that with it being easier to hit and easier to launch. But for me, that duller contact sound is what I'm looking for. And that's why if I was to choose one driver for the feel, it would be the TaylorMade M5. Okay, so on to the performance, and this is where we get on to showing you the launch monitor data. Now, I tested each of these drivers at the Foresight Sports headquarters in Guildford using the GC Quad launch monitor and using Titleist Pro V1 X golf balls from 2019. Now, we do take a few shots out. We take out anything that is really poorly struck, because whilst I appreciate there's something to be said for understanding how a driver performs on significant mishits, in this test it can skew the numbers in a way that's slightly unfair. We do leave in slight mishits, we take out the big ones, and we also remove anything that's really wide, so anything that's sort of missing the fairway by a long way, we remove. There were also some fairly small differences in the way each of the different drivers was set up. Ideally, we'd have exactly the same shaft, loft and weighting system in each of them, but we do a little bit of fitting, plus we have to use what we've been given. So I had the Titleist TS3 in a 9.5 head with a hazardous 60 gram 6.5 shaft, neutral weight. The Ping G410 Plus was 9 degrees with the Ping Tour 65S shaft in it. Callaway's Epic Flash Sub-Zero was 9 degrees with a hazardous 6.5 70 gram shaft in it. Mizuno's ST190 was 9 degrees with the Tensei 70 gram X-Flex shaft in it. TaylorMade's M5 was 9.5 degrees with an Aldila 70X shaft in it, mid-spinning, no shot shape bias, and then finally the Cobra King F9 was in 9 degrees with the weight forward and the hazardous smoke 6.5 60 gram shaft in it as well, the same shaft that was in the Titleist TS3. So that's how different the drivers were, but each of the drivers we felt we got into a position where they were really as comparable as we were going to get them in order for the data to be as robust as possible. So let's take a look at that data, starting with the Titleist TS3. So club head speed of 114.1, ball speed 165.6, launching at 14.1, spinning low. Actually, this was the lowest spinning driver on the test at 1712, peak height of 35 yards, and the total carry distance, average carry distance, was 299. Now this is the average numbers for each of the drivers, so fantastic performance from the Titleist TS3. Then it was the Ping. Club head speed slightly up, 114.9, ball speed at 165.8, launching at 13.2 degrees, spinning really nicely for me at 1963, peak height really good, really strong ball flight, slightly high, but really strong at 36 yards, and also an average carry distance of 299. Then it was the Callaway Epic Flash Sub-Zero. 114.7 club head speed, ball speed was 165.7. The launch was 13.8 degrees, so nice high launch. Spinning nice and low at 1722, so that combination of high launch, low spin, working really well for the Callaway. 34 peak height and a total carry yardage of 297, so really strong performance from the Callaway. Then it was Cobra, and there was a jump in terms of club head speed of 115.1 miles per hour. Now that jump in club head speed, maybe it shows that the work that Cobra have done on their speedback design is delivering a little bit more club head speed. That would be my experience, and look at how that translates into extra ball speed as well, 167.4. For me, it was launching a little bit low at 12.1 and spinning a little bit high at 23.57. Now, I should say at this point that the strikes I was getting with the Cobra were slightly lower on the face than they were with some of the other clubs I was testing, and that was delivering a little bit more spin, so that the overall peak height was higher at 36 and the carry distance wasn't quite so much at 290. I think if I made a few tweaks, or if I started striking it that little bit higher on the face, the overall distance numbers would be just the same with the Cobra as they were with the others. Really impressive club head speed and really impressive ball speed. Then on to the TaylorMade, and this is a really interesting one. So the club head speed was down at 110.3 miles per hour. Now I need to be completely transparent and tell you that this was the last driver on the test that I hit. By the time I got to the TaylorMade, I'd hit possibly 40 balls, I think. So perhaps the swing was slowing down a fraction, I don't know. However, so the swing speed was down, but look at the ball speed at 166.5. I think that shows that the work that TaylorMade have done with their injected twist face Perhaps there is something in that, those coefficient of restitution limits being right up to the limit. I was certainly getting more, really strong ball speed from slightly less of a club head speed. So perhaps if I was able to swing the club a little bit harder, I'd get a little bit more distance. That was really apparent with the TaylorMade. Launching a little low at 12.1, really nice mid-spinning performance for me at 20-25, slightly lower peak height than the others on the test at 33 yards. And so whilst it was, I say, only carrying 292, that's carrying a hell of a long way for me. The overall distance with the TaylorMade would certainly be comparable with the other drivers that I hit. And finally, the Mizuno. So Mizuno, club head speed of 112.2, ball speed of 165.6, launching at 12.7, spinning at 1965, peak height of 34, and a total carry distance for me with the Mizuno ST190 of 293. Now, the reason that I went with the ST190 over the G version is that I think it spins a fraction higher than the movable weight version, and for me, I think I hit the ST190 just a fraction better than I hit the ST190G, and I preferred the feel of the ST190. That's why I went for that version of the driver, and I think you can see from the performance here that it really does stack up. Okay, so if I was to choose my favourite in the performance category, and I really hate to have to sit on the fence here, but it would be really unfair for me to pick one driver over any of the other 6 that I tested. I'm not a robot, I'm also not a PGA professional, so my swing, I'm a 5 handicapper, my swing every time is not exactly the same. So I'm pretty sure the results from one day wouldn't be exactly the same as results from another day. And when you look at how similar those results are across the board, then I think it's fair to say that whatever driver you pick up, if it's right for you, if it's in your spec and it's spec'd out exactly correctly for you, you will find fantastic distance, forgiveness, and overall performance will be superb from whichever driver you choose. So, as I say, I hate to have to do it, but I'm going to have to sit on the fence and say I love the performance of all of the 6 drivers that I tested. Okay, so moving on to the value, I'm going to quote to you now the recommended retail prices of each of these drivers on the market in the UK. Now, if you do a bit of shopping around, you might be able to find it a little bit cheaper, but this is the recommended retail price, and it does give you a good indication of where they sit on the whole price spectrum. So the Cobra is the least expensive at £349. Then it's the Mizuno ST190 at £399. Ping's G410 Plus at £450, and then you have Callaway, Titleist and TaylorMade, all on the same recommended retail price, all on sale for £499. Now, I think it's fair to say that there has been a trend this year towards pushing the prices up of the drivers, with the exception, I think, of Cobra, and that Cobra driver coming in at £349. I think that in this market, I think that represents excellent value for money. Now, one thing I would say is that whichever brand you go for, it's not a cheap investment. You're going to have to get your wallet out. It is an investment that you're going to need to spend some time thinking about, and it is expensive. So, of course, it really is imperative to go through a full and thorough custom fitting. If you get the fitting right, then you can get each of those spin numbers that I was talking about exactly right for you. You can get the launch number right for you. And if you get those aspects correct, then you will find more distance in your driver game. I'm pretty much sure, even if you bought a driver from last year, I still think with a thorough custom fitting in 2019, you might just be able to eke out a few extra yards. But if I was going to pick one driver based on value, it would have to be the Cobra King F9 Speedback. It's a great driver, and coming in at $349, I think this represents excellent value for money. Okay, so on to the verdict, and I've done this sort of group driver test for a few years now, and never has it been harder to pick one driver over the other because of that performance element I was talking about when we had the launch monitor data. The launch monitor data across the board, when all drivers are fitted well and all are in the right spec, they're all superb. Now, one thing I will say before I tell you which I think I would put into my bag is that I think the driver market in 2019 is looking really, really healthy. Now, I know there is an awful lot of skepticism out there because the manufacturers come out year after year after year and keep promising more speed, more distance. in a way that after a while you start to get a little bit immune to it, and you start to get a little bit skeptical about those promises. And I know that there is a big marketing machine working away behind each of these brands. However, what I would say is that each of those brands, they do spend a lot of money on R&D, and they do realise the importance of producing drivers that are faster from one year to the next. And let's face it, how many of you watching this will upgrade their driver every single year? Really, I think you're going to notice big gains if you upgrade your driver every, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years. That's when you're going to start to know significant distance gains. And as I say, I think each of the brands has upped their game for 2019. And I think whichever brand you go for, if you have a loyalty towards one brand, if one brand you feel like, yeah, that's the sort of golf club I want to play, then I think that's a really good way to go. If I had to choose my favourite driver, well, I had one of these drivers in my bag before this test, and it was the Titleist TS3, and the numbers from the launch monitor would confirm that this really is a good fit for me, and I really like it. I like the way that it feels. Yes, it has slightly more of an understated look. I don't quite like the look and the feel maybe quite as much as the TaylorMade, but it's not enough of a reason for me to switch this out of my bag, so I'd be going for the Titleist TS3. However, having said that, I would be happy using any of the drivers that I've tested here. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Please do hit the like button if you've liked the video. Also hit the subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss any of our equipment videos. We try to make sure we review all of the key pieces of equipment whenever they come to market, so do hit the subscribe button. And also please do leave comments below. Which of these 6 drivers would you put in your bag? We'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. But for now, from Bishopsgate, it's goodbye.